And now, Kyle and Steven present another episode of the Go F Yourself podcast.
It's Fix.
Really? Well, that's embarrassing. The Go Fix Yourself podcast.
Welcome to the Go Fix Yourself podcast, where we are learning something from people because we just don't know anything, and we're trying to fix that. I am your co-host, Steven, and sitting to my left is just this dude. He's wearing like half a jacket, which is also called a vest, but he's got like this Boy Scout hat on. What is it? Good Walk Coffee Company. You're just looking good, is what I'm saying. It's Kyle Redding.
I know that's what my wife said while walking out the door. She's like, "You look cute tonight."
Hey,
it's our anniversary, by the way.
Hey.
7 years. Jesus.
Wow.
That's
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. That is.
And you're here recording a podcast with us.
Yeah, she's leaving me tomorrow.
That's dedication, dude.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to
dedication.
be here for another episode. We keep doing it. I'm sitting next to you. This is episode 100 plus 140-ish. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
We have found the words to fill 140 plus hours.
It's surprising that people still listen to us.
It's dwindling.
I don't think it's us. I think it's our guests. And so, which we're very excited about our guest today. But before we introduce him, we want to talk about kind of what we're talking about today.
Yes.
And so today we are talking about playing hockey.
Yeah.
And I guess in the short scheme of things, I think we're going to
In a
go into
nutshell.
so much more. But here's the thing. I come from New York, right? And so if you've listened to this podcast, it's like I didn't grow up here. Now, hockey is like the biggest sport in Alaska, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Because when I came up here, it was like I was soccer, basketball, baseball, coming from that. And then everybody up here did not play any of those sports, and they all played hockey. And so I was kind of left out.
I know. When you say that, that's crazy because I was a big Rangers fan when I was a kid.
You're a Rangers fan, huh?
No, I was. You know, Mark Messier, all these guys that
Okay.
I was like, man, Rangers. I had a poster on my wall.
Really?
Everything.
So
so when you say New York, I'm always like, oh, they got a little hockey there, just a little bit.
Oh,
you know.
but and that's the thing.
You didn't play it though.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes.
Which is different. I get that.
Did you play it?
I did play. It's kind of like the Jam League, and if you've listened to a few episodes, you know about the Jesus and Me basketball league that I was a part of.
Yeah.
I was
almost D1.
I was
D1.
pretty good. I also played for Boys and Girls Club here, hockey, and
Similar. D1, almost right there. Just kind of right.
The skills were
right below.
not great, but it was a lot of fun. I remember my jersey being red for a lot of years, so I have some great memories
What does
with
that
hockey.
mean?
I don't know. That's just what color
okay.
team we were for a lot of
Gotcha.
years. So we have the pleasure of having our first NHL player
Yeah.
on the podcast.
Yeah.
We have JJ Johnson.
Yes. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
welcome to the podcast. We are so excited to have you on. We're gonna talk about hockey, and you're talking to two guys that, I mean, you look at us and we're like, you're probably thinking two athletes for life.
We got athlete bodies. I think that's the first thing you probably thought of when we walked. You're like, whoa, these guys are fit.
Like a lot of charisma, though.
Yeah.
We
A
got
lot of
charisma.
lying is what they seem
Yeah.
to be doing. But we're so happy to have you on, and we want to talk all about hockey, but not just hockey. We want to talk about you and what you do now.
Mm-hmm.
We always kind of lead this podcast off with kind of our question that his parents are two of our biggest fans.
Some might say our biggest fans, and maybe our only fans.
That is true. And
They will not pay for our OnlyFans, but
No, they will not.
They might be our OnlyFans.
they're very important to us.
Yes.
So Rick and Carol are over in New York right now, and they want to hear basically your elevator pitch about who you are and what you do right now.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I want to say hello to Rick and Carol in New York.
Look at that. You remember.
I'm going to do my best not to bore them.
I'm shocked you remember because we told you this before, and you were like, "What are their names?" And I was like, "He's not going to remember."
I can't let you down.
Dang.
I'm like,
Oh,
why'd
man.
you bring that guy on?
You're going to get a Christmas card. I can feel it now.
That JJ, he's a sweet boy. That's not how my mom talks,
I'm a
but
pleaser.
Yeah.
Justin Johnson from East Anchorage by way of Seattle. Grew up here from age 3.5, 4 years old, and lived in East Anchorage, biracial. So I had all that going for me and all that confusion. And had a babysitter early on that her kids played hockey, and, no one wants to be left out. I feel bad about the story you told in the beginning.
Yeah.
About that. Cause
where everybody...
I know what that feels like.
Oh, yeah. Everybody would play pond hockey, and I was just like either on the sidelines or I just didn't go.
And I begged my mother if I could play, and she worked for an ear, nose, and throat doctor, so she wasn't really too keen on it because she thought that you didn't play the face mask and that you'd lose your teeth and your face would get mangled. Yeah. And I think through the course of just a year of begging and prodding and just loving hockey and being super interested, she couldn't deny me any further, and finally signed me up. And that was a weird time because not soon after that my parents got divorced, and I guess that became my thing. And when I talk to people about it, I'm always learning new aspects of kind of what that might have been like. And I think that she did the best she could to maybe distract me from that. And so she really sacrificed and went all in on helping me play hockey, and would take me to the Diamond Center at her lunch break, and I'd be left there all day with $5, which would get spent on a bazooka and maybe a Wendy's sandwich, and played hockey. In East Anchorage, it was different back then in the 90s, where, it didn't matter whether you were, affluent or blue collar. Everybody got to play because it was pretty affordable, and it turned into being something that was my complete passion, and all I could think about, all I wanted. And I tied a lot of my social relationships to sports, whether it was, basketball, baseball, soccer in the summer, to hockey in the winter. And hockey being kind of the way it was is, you super competitive. The demographics were a little different, so I kind of had learned that I needed to prove myself. And so through that, kind of ended up, things worked out for me. It wasn't always easy, but kind of fast forward to now. I don't want to talk too long on the initial question, but it was what made me who I am, and taught me a lot about disappointments and adversities, and kind of how you work your way out of that, and learning how to give people what they want. I think when you're playing a sport, people tell you when you're not good enough, why you're not good enough, or why they think you're not good enough, and you got to go find a way to give them what they want. And for me, that was whatever it takes to kind of get noticed and get some somehow find a way to be favorable in their eyes, to be put on these teams, and it worked out. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, that coming from Alaska, like whenever I hear somebody that I feel like everybody's played hockey. And like when you're talking about it, do you feel like when you were saying that's all you could think about, that was your passion, do you feel like that just was lucky for you to find hockey and that lined up with your skill set to like take it as far as you did? Or did you feel like when you found hockey that developed over time? Because I always wonder if professional athletes and stuff like that, is it like just a lucky cross section of interest and skill that allowed them to pursue it? Or did you get involved and then just work harder than everybody else kind of idea?
Definitely what you said in the end. But it started with just, I loved it.
Yeah. Well, you have to, if you're going to put that much time and effort, you got to love it, right?
I really loved it. Not because my parents pushed me towards it, which is unique to talk to you about it. Because, for a lot of kids that we know now, with our friends and our acquaintances, a lot of that is, you get encouraged by your parents. Or, somehow through your social, network or whatever. I wasn't really friends with my babysitter's kids.
Right.
They weren't,
right.
They weren't, I wasn't invited to their birthday parties, and I don't think they were invited to mine, but, that's what they did. And, that was where I would go after school, go take part in that activity until our parents came to pick us up.
What was it that, like, if you can remember, like, what was it that drew you towards hockey so much? Like, why, how did it become your passion?
There was a guy named Jamal Mason. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but he was black guy from went to my elementary school, and watched him in a school assembly, doing like some gym hockey type expo or whatever, and they had his jersey on, it had stars on it, had his name, kind of embroidered in the back, and I was just like, man, that was like my first like example of a idol or early, pre-adolescent kind of hero.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that kind of definitely like, oh, he plays hockey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I wasn't paying attention to the white-black thing at all, but I paid attention to him.
Right.
Because I didn't know any better. You're only 8 years old, which is late actually for hockey. So it's interesting kind of thinking back about by that. I think Jamal Mason really
Open up the floodgates.
open that up for me.
Shout out to Jamal.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, and then just from there, it was something that maybe, I wasn't, I like basketball. I like soccer. You know what I mean? But that whole thing of the stick in my hand and kind of weave through traffic and score a goal.
Sure.
Just gave me a lot more fulfillment than, hitting a basket or scoring a basketball hoop or whatever.
Yeah, no, I get that because like when hockey's different, and we were talking about this before, is like you are on, and I said this was, you're on two basically knives on your feet, and you're skating around as fast as you can.
Yeah, murder weapons.
Yeah, you're on murder weapons on your feet. You're skating around. You're hitting people. I should say, and you're trying to just put this rubber puck into the other guy's net. Like when you break down sports, sometimes it becomes like super simple, and you're like, how do people do this for a living?
Soccer. It's like, you just try to kick a ball into this big giant goal.
Yeah, but there's something to it. I mean, golf is the same way with me. Like you're just trying to put a little white ball into a hole 18 times. Like it's very simple, but there's so much more to sports when you like start
it is
playing.
Simple, dude. Come on.
It's so easy, isn't it? Okay, yeah. So you played high school, I'm assuming, for East?
Yep, East Anchorage High School.
Very cool.
The East Anchorage High School.
Betty Davis, right? Yeah. And so then when you graduate high school, what was college? What was that thinking about hockey going to that point? Because at the time, what was it?
Hockey's different where you can kind of go have a sabbatical from school. And during that sabbatical, which we call juniors, you do your best to kind of get noticed and maybe have a school or institution take a liking to you and want to give you a scholarship, hopefully. That's always the goal, and to play Division I hockey at the highest level you can. And so I was a late bloomer. A lot of guys that, we've all known by now were super talented and didn't have to wait that long. But for me, I played 3 years of junior hockey after high school.
Gotcha.
And I was able to come home and play on the UAA hockey team. And
Seawolves.
Yeah. And so that was, for me, I was a walk-on initially. They call it recruited walk-on, but still you're a walk-on. The school's not invested in you.
So what's that mean? Like for somebody that's uninitiated, like does that mean you went to UA tryouts and it's open, or how does that all work?
Well, you can do that, but being recruited means is they asked you to be on the team.
They knew you.
We'd like you to be on the team, but we're not going to give you $1 to help you pay for it. So you'll have to figure it out on your own in the meantime. And if it works out for you, maybe we'll give you a scholarship, but you can't bet on it or count on it. We're not promising you that. And good luck.
So it's a performance-based scholarship in a sense, or potential.
Yeah, it's an opportunity, basically.
Really? That's interesting. So what was that? So you were what, probably 21-ish when...
21. I was a 21-year-old freshman, thank God.
That's kind of cool. It
helped a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's kind of cool. So what was... Like, I'm thinking when we were 21, absolute morons. Like, not much has changed, but like...
Me too.
But at the same time, like, you're getting told, hey, college isn't paid for. We need to see you perform. Like, what does that do to a 21-year-old mindset of, like, what you need to do on the ice? Or did you have to work? Or how did you end up getting through
I think for me, I had always told myself, and I told my mom and my stepdad and my dad that if I can't play hockey in college, I'm going to sign up for the military.
Okay. Yeah.
And thinking about that time, I mean, that's 01, 02 after 9/11. So it was a huge relief that I was going to get an opportunity. And so that's kind of how I took it, where this is what I want to do. It's kind of working out, and the rest is in your hands. And hopefully, if it all works out, it'll be worthwhile. And if you're able to develop and do what the coaches say and follow the rules and maybe perform at a level that they find reasonable or whatever, maybe you'll get rewarded and get a scholarship. Like, so for me, it was just happy to be there. There was no plans on me being a significant part of the team other than just a depth guy that was going to work hard. And, there's that anytime you have a school that's got a sport, that's native to that area,
right?
You got to kind of have your local quota. And I wouldn't dare say that's why the coaches put me in the team or whatever, but I think it helps give you that extra oomph of an opportunity. And I was lucky that I played for, Coach John Hill and Jack Cole and Keith Morris that knew me for a long time, whether it was hockey schools or whatever. And so I think that they knew me was huge. And so maybe that made them feel a little comfortable, like, hey, we can give this guy an opportunity, and he hopefully won't make us feel like we've hurt, the image of the school, or we've wasted a spot on the team on somebody who was unworthy. So for me, it was just relief and glad to be here.
Sure.
To be honest with you, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, what's that like being a college athlete? Because I was not, and I think
I'm sorry to laugh, Kyle, but yeah. I mean,
I
clearly,
was an academic.
No,
but,
sure.
Yeah.
Like I feel
you
like
were a drinker.
I feel like
Actually, you weren't a drinker, were you, in college?
not huge.
You were a partier, but less
but
drinker.
We had a lot of hockey guys in my classes, and they were so cool because we'd go watch the hockey games and get beers and all that stuff. It was a lot of fun to be a part of the Seawolf community and support. You had that guy in your class earlier today, and he was cheating off of everybody to get past. And it's like, as a college athlete, like, how much did you care about school? Was it more about like, hey, I'm just gonna pursue hockey no matter what? I know the military was kind of an option, but I always think of that. Do you picture yourself going higher, or do you say, I'm probably going to have to get a job?
Well, the first thing is like, you got to go to class.
Right.
And then I got to find a way to get in the lineup.
Right.
And
you have to have a GPA of some sort, right, to play.
Yeah. And if you don't satisfy a lot of those requirements, it doesn't even, you don't even get a chance.
Right.
Right. And so I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it was, me having some, I think, sincere disappointments, I think, growing up. I wouldn't say that I had an ego that was inflated even an inch, So I knew that, like, if I wasn't a guy that was actually playing, that whole thing about, having fun at the bars, the parties, that wasn't going to be something where I was going to thrive in if I'm, a nobody because I'm not playing. and it's sad that I thought that.
Sure.
But that's, as a 21-year-old, that's what I believed. I believed, like, if you're not playing or whatever, you're not cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so if you want to be cool and you want to be somebody, you better be in the lineup.
Yeah.
And that means you better be in that when the coach fills the form out, that you're playing in the game and that you're not in the stands in a suit. So that was kind of mission number one. And so when you talk about kind of all I cared about, that really was kind of, all my day revolved around was showing up at 2:30 at the Wells Fargo complex and just and giving her hell. You know what I mean? And whether that was picking up pucks, weight room, yes sir, no sir, staying out of trouble, not taking it for granted. I mean, there's good and bad examples around us all day long.
Right.
And so I think that I had learned through some, I don't know if we'll ever get into that kind of stuff in this next hour or whatever, but I feel like I had a white stepdad from the South who knew nothing, cared nothing for hockey, just, had a military background and wanted to see me, not be a punk.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then I had a father I grew up with that was from the South as well, who knew nothing, cared nothing about hockey, and was more, I wouldn't say he was a stickler for, being strict, I guess, when it comes to, your day-to-day or whatever, in terms of those kind of accountabilities that some parents might hold you to. So, you observe the people around you and their fathers and things like that. And I had a lot of help to that point to where I got to UAA. And so for me, it was just not about disgracing or letting people down. You know what I mean? And so there's
a big driver.
So I have different, I have, how I feel about my stepdad, how I feel about the dad I grew up with, how I feel about the other dads that were around me that supported me and believed in me and helped my mom out financially to keep me on the ice. And so I just had a different, I think, perspective at that point without it, which I don't know if it would have worked out for me if I didn't have that.
Sure.
And so, it was easy for me to do what I'm supposed to do, and do it harder than everybody else because I really, really cared.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it started.
It sounds like a few people sacrificed a lot for you to like get where you were, but it sounds like your mom was kind of a big kicker in that. She was the one that got you into hockey and allowed you to play, and like you said, financially supported, because hockey, I mean, like you said, when you were younger, it may have been subsidized through, I know Boys and Girls Club, all those things allow a lot of kids, rich or poor, to provide gear for them and stuff like that. But I don't know if it was like that in high school. So hockey's a very expensive sport with new sticks, new skates, and a growing kid needs new gear every year. And so it's a lot of money.
I'd hate to say typical or epitome or whatever, but that's really what it was. The people who I work for subsidized or supplemented her paycheck with whatever little extra to help keep me on the ice. Because like I said, it was kind of during that time when they were getting divorced. And then there were some dads on the team that were very affluent, and maybe I was respectful or kind enough to where they thought I was worth helping out. And it was, an example of, people maybe giving you a shot, you know what I mean? That maybe they understood that, I don't know what's going to happen for this kid, but I think, I want to step in because, clearly the love was there, the effort was there, and I had a lot of special people that I thank God for all the time, and that's why I think getting to sit here and have this conversation with you, I get to kind of get in touch with that. These people don't get to hear from you always, but, in my spirit or whatever I do, I acknowledge these things. And one of the guys' name is Benton DeBrell. He was an old school Texan guy that had no hockey background, but he loved it, and, coached us, gave his whole heart and soul to us, but his kids weren't on the team. So for me, that was a big deal. And I think I kind of went off on a tangent there or whatever, but which I apologize for.
No, that's cool.
Was, it's a game where you suffer, and it's not easy, and your effort is the ultimate deciding factor, I think.
Sure.
Which for me made all the difference.
Yeah. When did you become aware? Because a lot of times I think I'm a step parent right now as well. And so I wonder all the time about my stepson. When is he going to realize as he gets older some of the sacrifices parents make for them and stuff like that? And so you were kind of saying in college, like, when did you realize the sacrifices your parents made for you? And so you kind of felt like you needed to perform like in college. And it was like, was that a younger age or older?
Well, first, one thing I forgot to mention that last time, the last question you asked was when we talked about my mom. Another thing other than sacrifice was her gift of a temper.
So that's where you get
that was critical for me.
Yeah.
Because things are emotional or whatever, and being able to tap into these things can make a big difference. And I think on the ice rink, being able to get emotionally engaged and have a temper for me was important. But back to what you say about being a step parent is, I want to reach across the table and give you a hug because I know how I felt about my stepdad.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is. That's life. But, I would find ways to hate him.
Sure.
And not because he deserved to be hated, just because there was was an outsider.
Yeah.
And the idea of, ignorance or the reality of ignorance when you're young it's all you know. All I know is that, he's, I'm half black, half white. He's all white. He's from the South. I don't feel, at least, as a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, like he's 100% invested in seeing me continue to play, hockey, and hockey is so expensive. And so any kind of word, phrase, energy or whatever, I would have my hatred would just feast on that, and I'll never be able to apologize for that enough. But he knows now that through the gift of perspective, like that's where I got a lot of my grit from. That's where I got a lot of my humility and being honest and modest about things and understanding like either you're good enough or you're not. And then I just had that ultimate drive to prove him wrong, and it's not because he thought I was a, scumbag, or whatever, or low life or worthless. It's just, hey, you gotta be a good kid. You gotta know what's right and wrong. You gotta do what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean? What you want is extra, you know what I mean? And it costs or whatever. So, there was all that stuff that was in my face and, But I think as I, learned to know kind of what reality was and how you got to have a job and you got to be able to pay your bills or whatever, I learned that he had a very tough job where he went into the bush and I think he worked for Alaska Village Co-op or whatever. But his job was basically to go to the rural areas and make sure that the power was on. So he slept on the floor, slept with the gun, went some places where he's not, people aren't too keen on his presence there. And these were, 4 to 6 week hitches he would do.
Wow.
Where he'd be home maybe 1 to 2 weeks, but he'd be gone 4 to 6.
Damn.
And, in the 90s, you can think like he probably got compensated very well, but that was a sacrifice for him. If you want to get paid well,
you got to be gone for a long time.
You got to be gone. And he did that. So I got the fortunate favor of living in a solid, beautiful East Anchorage middle income, or middle class home over there off of Boniface and Kenny Hill. Near Campbell Airstrip. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
Wesleyan is where I grew up.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah. And my friends on the east side say that is not east side, but I can hear the East High bell from that house.
And you said it with that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air kind of thing.
I did.
I love that. That was my favorite show back then. I watched it religiously.
Oh, hell yeah.
Who didn't watch that? Yeah. That was a great show.
And I think, I wanted to show up and I wanted to be worthy of his respect. Because he was a hard-nosed guy who I believe to be tough in every sense of the word. Just by, he worked in the cold and all that, and I wanted his respect. He was the first man where I really, when I knew what respect was and when I knew I wanted it, he was the first person I know I wanted his respect from, and not because he treated me like I was a, whatever. I don't want to belabor that, but so I think internally that was a big driver for me.
Yeah. Do you ever text them some of your fight videos from YouTube? Say, what up?
You see how many views this one's got, Dad?
If you ever want to step up to the young buck, I'm ready.
Well, not, and I would never, say anything like that to him. He was, he was probably my biggest fan, really.
Really?
Because that was something that him and I could,
bond over.
We could bond over that. We could talk about, on ice fisticuffs and, where he got to kind of give me his 2 cents and, and I was willing to take them and it was a process and we might get into it, but initially when you went to college, there's no fighting.
Right.
But which came afterwards. But I know, me going to school was everything that him and my mom had ever hoped for me. And then, they wanted to see me have success and so they were behind me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, a good support system, I think, I'm sure there's stories of athletes that make it without a good support system, but I feel like you got to have that to some extent to get far and especially an expensive sport like that.
I know, and I want to make sure I answer your question fully too. When you talk about the stepdad factor, is unfortunately when I talked about wanting to reach across the table and giving you hugs, because it's going to take a long time.
Oh yeah,
for kids to know and learn and really feel that, which breaks my heart. You know what I mean? To think about it, because I know how I was, and I see my friends going through that same thing.
Yeah.
And I want to tell them, hey, you have to give that time. It might be, 22, 25, 30.
Days?
Well, I mean, I wish it was days, but I mean, it takes a long time to mature and to understand what real sacrifice is. And stepdad went to work and loved my mom and supported me. And gosh, until you get there as an adult, you have no concept of the beauty and the strength and how wonderful that is.
Sure.
When you're on the back deck and, handshake or a beer and a hug and all that. So, I look forward to that for you.
Yeah. No, I've accepted I am going to have to push out the timeline from the 25 days to appreciation to maybe years. But you know what? That's what you sign up for at the same time. And it's not always easy, but like I said, that's what you signed up for, and it's going to be tough sometimes. And maybe a lot of times.
And we need you to.
Yeah.
We need you. Society's counting on you.
Yeah. Well, let's get into, so post-college, what happens? 4 years at UA?
Yep, 4 years
at
UA.
And then that's kind of where, how do you go to the next level?
Well, for me, it was like a fairy tale initially because I was, love the Aces and Bob Lester. And, and it was. I mean, it's like 05,
Cowbell,
or 04,
baby.
05,
Yeah.
06. I mean, Scott Gomez came back and played in the team, and it was like Noah's Ark. I've used that before. I apologize, but
No need to
if
apologize.
you saw it like in May when it's playoff time, people were coming from out of every crack or crevice from Crazy Horse parking lot to
walking all the way down. I remember those.
Crossroads Bar to, up there by Fireweed Theaters. I mean, you name it. It was such a special thing, and the owners did a great job of supporting it, getting behind it, investing in it. And so some really good teams. So for me, playing at UAA,
that was the dream.
I didn't. NHL, what's the NHL? Like, all I want to play is the Alaska Aces.
No shit.
100%. And got to join the team after my senior year and got to go on a few road trips and obviously got to be along for the ride when they won the first Kelly Cup.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. There was no expectations of me. They had a very good team. I got to kind of learn, be in the sidelines, but still get to pretend that, hey, you're on the team, you're a part of this, even though you're not really.
Sure.
And the next year with the prominence of the Aces, they were always affiliated with the American League team, which meant that they were always getting players filtered down from the American League or starting from the NHL down to the American League, then down to the coast. And so if you're a guy like me who's unproven and unestablished and, no one's thinking I'm going to come in there and light the world on fire and score 20 goals. I'm one of the first guys that you can let go of. So I was cut from the team. Had a girlfriend, so it's kind of brutal. Here you are, you're out of college, and your plans are now out the window. You haven't really finished your degree, and you're not sure if you want to, ride the bus or fly all over North America trying to catch on to a team somewhere. It wasn't something like I had parents. I would just say, hey, give me $5,000 and let me go fly around trying to make these hockey teams. So I just, I guess I did the mature thing, and I just signed up to finish my degree. Went to work for Louis Mass at the dryland training hockey facility in South Anchorage, where I'd go to class, and then I would go to the facility and I'd train kids for the rest of the day. Tie their skates, try to keep them moving, try to keep them happy, try to impress parents with my prowess of keeping their kids active and not letting that hour be a waste of time. And it was exhausting. And then I got this magical phone call in the morning in December from a friend, Daniel Hacker, who was playing for the Idaho Steelheads. And their team was a really good team in that league. And so the parent club had a bunch of injuries. And so a lot of their players were called up. And so when they showed up in Anchorage that weekend, I think they had maybe 12 or 13 skaters. So this is the practice for a lot of years. I don't think people might know, but, we were always putting emergency goalies out there for these teams that came to play us, Bakersfield, Fresno, you name it. If the goalie's called up, you'd fly to that city or whatever, and you would, use what's called an e-bug.
And what's that?
Emergency backup.
Okay, so explain that to like somebody that doesn't know anything about hockey.
So,
me.
So
I didn't want to say it.
So the advantage of playing the Alaska Aces is there's 1,000 goalies out there.
Right.
And if you came up here with one goalie, it'd be pretty easy to find one. And usually you'd use the home team. I mean, they wouldn't want to give you a rock superstar or whatever, but usually it'd be some guy that was well known or well thought of. I think the guy that usually got those calls was Jeff Barney. I think he's a commercial fisherman or something.
So you're saying a local Anchorage person would play goalie for the team that came up?
Yeah, you'd show up on Friday morning, and they'd have a contract for you next to a cup of coffee and a donut, and they'd say, "Here you go. We're going to pay you
X amount
$150 for the next 2 days, or and here's a jersey with your name on it, and you're not going to get to keep that, but we'll give you this underwear that."
You get to keep the underwear.
You get to keep the underwear.
Here's the cup that we've been passing around from everybody to use. The jock strap.
We haven't washed it.
Yeah. So I got to be emergency player, and that would happen too, where, you could field skaters, and with, UAA and the Aces and that whole thing, there was plenty of guys that still were in relatively decent shape that would suit up for these visiting teams. And for me, that was it was a rough weekend.
Yeah.
Got heckled to no end.
I was going to say,
Got in a fight with a 6'7" guy that's done it, quite a bit, and it didn't have the best outcome. The first one was good because he fell down, thankfully.
Slipped on his knives.
Yeah,
on his
so you
feet.
can imagine being a local guy, and people just booed or
because you were playing for the
wrong
the Steelheads.
team.
Yeah.
You weren't good. You're not good enough to play for the Aces. You're a loser. You suck. I mean, I could use more colorful language or whatever. Making fun of me. Your girlfriend's in the stands. Your family's in the stands. You see it. You feel it. Your buddies are. They don't kind of want to. Rub it in too hard, but you got some friends that'll kind of give it to you, like, "What do you think you were doing out there? Come on." You know what I mean? So, and that hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff stung because, there's a reality like, maybe you're not good enough. You know what I mean? And you're clearly not signed to be a hockey player. You thought you were going to go out there and pretend to be a hockey player this weekend and it was going to be great for you. Like, get back in line with us. You know what I mean? And get a beer or whatever. I don't know.
There's a lot of mental health shit.
Yeah. So, but the best part about that is that they kept calling. So I ended up playing like 16 to 20 games that year. And I actually
for the same team?
For the same team. And then my last games that I got to play that year were for the Aces because they had a similar predicament where they were out of players. And so they called me for a weekend to play. So
you just like you get on the ice too, and you're like, I'm back, motherfucker.
Yeah, and I'm on the right jersey.
You sons of bitches.
Yeah. And I loved it, and it felt great, and it felt good. And I was like, and then they changed coaches that year, and I had a very positive relationship with a new coach. And so he was going to give me a shot the next year, but then the same thing happened where they sent a guy down and, I'm unproven, I'm unestablished. And, you kind of toe the line as an affiliate, which the Aces were. And so, you got to take that player over the other one. And the other one was me. So here I was back on, back sitting there on the edge of my bed, like wondering like, oh man, like I hadn't even thought about anything about what I was going to do or want to do. And, got really lucky that one of the players on the Idaho team that year was playing for the Utah team. And something happened with the guy that they thought was going to be their enforcer. Mm-hmm. And, money is an issue because it was a veteran-laden team. So, it's not like you could say, hey, come down here and, get in fistfights with us every night of the week for, pennies. So he was like, well, there's a guy in Alaska that I think is a decent hockey player, I guess. And I think he wants to be a tough guy. At least he pretended to be. You know what I mean?
He wrote that on his resume.
Yeah, he looks like
tough guy.
He looks like he might be able to,
Tough guy from 1995 to 2002.
And we can pay him nothing.
Yeah.
And he'll show up probably. And so I got another early phone call. And this guy named Jason Christie, they call him Smurf because he's like 5'6" and maybe 230 pounds.
Damn.
Stocky.
Greasy mullet, really bad goatee. Talk like a, one of those guys, but great hockey guy. Really appreciated, all facets of the game because he was a skilled player in his day, but he loved the tough guys because the tough guys were the ones that looked out for him. So he said, hey, JJ, how's $300 a week sound? You interested? You know what I mean? And I was at that point.
To move?
Yeah.
And to be there?
Yeah.
$300 a week.
Yeah. So,
damn.
I was like, yeah, sure. When can, and I think I said something dumb that I won't say, but I said, yeah, I'll be a runaway, blah, 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 which I'm not proud of. But I was being funny, I thought, and it's not funny now to use terminology like that. But I was trying to make a point about just how desperate I would be.
Sure.
To be on the team. Mm-hmm. And thank you for giving me an opportunity, and I can't wait to be there. And so that's what happened. That's how I eventually made my way onto a professional hockey team, was by, happenstance and somebody's,
the right calls at the right time.
Yeah.
I got a few questions. So this team, what league was that in?
Same league as the Aces. They played the Aces, same division.
Okay.
The Utah Grizzlies, Salt Lake City.
That's a good name.
Yep.
It's a good name and also a good place.
Great place.
And then, but so you said, and I'm familiar with this term, but also there might be people like me that don't know much about hockey. Enforcer.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean?
So basically what it means is you think about, the NHL draft, NBA draft, NFL draft, you have these young players that are coming up every year. It's just, it's life. Out with the old, in with the new. Mm-hmm. And in a sport, like football and hockey, you have to mature and progress in order, to make to be able to make the team or be worthy of being called up and to ascend to where the team thought your potential, lies. And so, but in hockey, these are some rough places that you're going to go into play in the minors where you're kind of cutting your teeth. And if you're scared to play, you're not really going to develop.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to do the things you need to do as a skilled player or whatever to, get confidence, because we all know without confidence, you're going to struggle in life, whether that's athletics or anything else.
If it's just walking into a room.
Yeah, just walking into a room and say, hey, you want me to work for you. You know what I mean? I can do the job. And
we're trying to get backstage at a rock show.
So
just walk confidently.
So you have to have a guy that's willing to, throw down. And hopefully,
in the simplest definition of the word,
and so
willing to throw down.
So what goes with that is an honesty, humility about like, hey, you're not here to score goals. You're here to be a cheerleader,
protect our investments,
Yes, and show up when we need you to.
Yeah,
which is I think about the psychology of that now, but very simple, but still very hard.
Yeah,
and that's when I talk about the gift of anger that my mother gave me. Suited me very well for this, because I knew how to turn it on and turn it off.
See, I can't imagine. Like sometimes it's like, oh, all right, we got another podcast today. Like, let's do it. I got to get into the zone.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine being like, I gotta fight someone today.
Yeah.
And getting into that zone.
Yeah.
And so, like, did you have a process of being like?
It wasn't good for sleeping.
I bet.
But what helped me was I would watch this video called All Heart. It was a tribute video to Wendell Clark, and they played a Metallica song during the.
So music is what got you.
Yeah. So it was the music.
Dun,
and
dun.
when I say music, there's things that get expressed in music. And for me, I wanted to represent that, whether it was like, being more being in the moment, being present, having a heart, having something that's worth giving, you know what I mean? Having, being someone that can suffer and survive and succeed. And then it was like, you're listening to hardcore metal or hip hop or whatever. It was like, hey, I'm a bad, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm not.
We
scared.
totally get
Dude,
it.
Yeah.
Every day.
Listen, it's funny. Oh God. I mean, just to say like getting in the zone for this podcast, and it's so weird, but I mean, like sometimes I'll listen to stand up and just be like, all right, talking or whatever. Yeah. But most of the time, and like, I'm not embarrassed to say this, but some people will, it's my guilty
Some
pleasure.
people will cringe.
Limp Bizkit.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I
break
get
something.
Dude, exactly.
Breaks.
I listened to that pulling up into this parking lot, like break stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Break your fucking face tonight. It's like,
Yep.
oh, all right, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a podcast.
Steven totally told me he's going to challenge you to a fist fight. Like he was like, I'm going to do it today.
I'd give him the first one.
My head is as big as your biceps. There's no way.
He was whispering it to me
Shut your
before we
fucking-
started.
Do not, fuck you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Don't say it.
Don't worry, Rick and Carol.
Yeah. I'll take good care of yourself.
But when
We should do a video though.
But when I say that, there's, I was afraid. It's point blank. I was afraid. Losing a fight.
Getting into.
Whether it's sixth grade off the bus or in front of 6,000 fans or whatever. Damn. Like, losing in front of your teammates.
Yeah.
Your teammates don't want you to lose. I wasn't a guy my teammates hated, so I know they probably wanted to see me not lose the fight.
Yeah.
And then there's the stress because I was undersized for that role. Most guys are, 6'3" to 6'8" or 9", 260 something pounds, and maybe do a lot of steroids and maybe kind of have lived that life since they were 16. Whereas, in Canada it was different than the States. And so it was constantly having to deal with fear.
Yeah, because let's break this down a little bit, because a couple things, like even my wife I was telling her about the podcast tonight, and she's like, and I showed her your most famous fight, and she was like, it's so weird that they're allowed to do that, and so why is fighting allowed in hockey? Like, at least until somebody goes down, essentially, right?
It's
still a penalty
to keep the game honest.
Okay.
Probably is the simplest way I can explain it. If you have one team that is way more aggressive and maybe has an element of that unpredictability, which is what we all fear the most, is things that are unpredictable.
Sure.
and an obvious willingness to want to get low down and dirty with you. Like if you don't have that element on your team, it's gonna be a long night.
Yeah. So it's kind of to even the. It's to say like this is going one way and we want to pull it back to kind of even ground.
Oh, I don't want to get off the bus.
Yeah,
because I know what's in store for us, and we're in Binghamton, New York. We know what I just want to get right back on the bus and get the hell out of here.
Right.
Or you know what? Yeah, we got Johnny, we got Mike, we got Bill, we got Zane. We're good. You know what I mean? Like, and so what happens is your teammates are still a little bit tall on the bench, and they're not so worried about that because they know that you're there to kind of level the playing field. And what that means is, all right, you got a guy, we got a guy. All right, as long as everybody's kind of watching their P's and Q's here, they'll do what they got to do, and then we'll just play the hockey game.
Gotcha.
But if you've got a team that's kind of stepping out of line and taking some taking liberties is what it's called on your team, whether that's getting a little giving extra stuff after the whistle,
sure,
messing with your goalie, messing with your best players, hitting guys when they're in vulnerable positions, because we all know there's a certain part of the game that's kind of supposed to be there's an integrity that needs to be maintained, and when it's not being maintained, then it's your job to kind of go out there and be like, hey, that's not something that's going to be allowed tonight, and so now either I'm going to make somebody pay, or your guy needs to come out here. We need to get this over with so we can get back to the playing a good, honest hockey game.
Yeah,
and having that element keeps the game honest.
That's That's an interesting way to put it.
So walk me through this really quick because I'm trying to picture it. It's like, so basically this guy taking liberties on the other team, and they'd be like, "Hey, JJ, go get him."
Oh yeah.
And then but then like you would like check them or something. Like how would that start?
So how that would start would be if someone against, and I had to deal with this a lot till I kind of got established. And that would be where, you'd have a guy like that, and you're like, I don't know who this guy is. Like he's 5'10" or 5'11" on his best day. I'm 6'4" warhead. You know what I mean? 250 pounds, and he should be afraid of me. I've never seen any of his fights on YouTube or whatever, and everyone's heard of me. I'd knock people out for fun and, chew nails, spit bullets kind of guy. My nickname's Hardhead or something,
Right.
And, you'd test me. You know what I mean? You would think that, hey, I'm King Kong out here. I'll do whatever the hell I want. You know what I mean? And so then it's my job to be like, actually, no, wait a minute. You're not going to do whatever the hell you want. So, I jump on the ice and, hey. And he'd look, oh, yeah, really? And you drop the gloves and you'd have a fight.
Ooh. So, okay. All right. I mean, because this is a while. I've never been in a fight.
Yeah.
I trained boxing. I just wanted to flex a little bit. But like, I'd never been in a fight.
Yeah.
Right? So like, just to get out there and then to be like, let's go. That's, first off, I have anxiety for you and fear.
Mm-hmm.
But so, I mean, like, so when you're sitting on the bench and you're like, are you just watching them and then being like, are you getting angry? Are you feeling that like temper rise up? Or are you just like, it's like coach is like, you're in. And then you're just like, boom. Like, how did I explain that? Because I'm really curious.
I preferred it that way because when it was that way, it was like, hey, you better do something right here, right now. And so when you hopped over the boards, I had that whole thing of fear, and then the adrenaline rush of the whole thing. But I was not confused. I knew exactly what needed to happen in that moment. And then I just had to rise to the occasion and not let my teammates down. You know what I mean? When you got older, then there's a lot more gamesmanship. You know what I mean? You don't want to fight the wrong time. You don't want to give a team a chance to kind of gain momentum by giving their guy a fight when the team is playing well and you're doing well, the crowd is into it, or vice versa. You're on the road, you're playing well. You know what I mean? You don't want to give a fight to their tough guy and get their crowd in it kind of thing. So I preferred in that moment, we're like, hey, this is your time to do what we need you to do right now. And so, I'd go out there with as cliche, with my sword and my shield and we'll see what happens. And I don't have to be worried about getting in trouble.
Coach told me to come out here.
I mean, pretty much.
Yeah.
Because once you get to that level, it's expected that I don't have to tap you. Because that would be very tacky if a coach did that outwardly and everyone in the rinks, oh, you see him, he just told him to go out there and get in a fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's like once you get to a certain level, like
what you're supposed to do.
If the coach puts you on the ice and you haven't been on the ice for 2 periods.
Right. That's what you're there for.
You know what I mean?
People are like, We know what he does.
Yeah. Okay. Now all of a sudden he's on the ice. You know what I mean? So, and usually it's your job to kind of, find a way to have more effective shifts or whatever. And then it's easier to find those fights because, hey, if I'm a coach and I'm playing you a consistent shift, I expect you to get out there, give us energy, play with an edge, have the other team kind of worried about you or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to play off of that. You know what I mean? I want them to take penalties. I want them to be scared. I want them to be concerned. I want them to know, like, hey, I'm playing my guy. Right. You know what I mean? My guy's playing well. He's not hurting the team. He's not hurting some defensive zone. He's not taking silly penalties or whatever. And, we'll see what happens or whatever. That's what a coach would prefer.
Sure.
And then have things be spontaneous.
Right.
You know what I mean? When things are staged, it's got a completely different feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I don't know if I made the point there, but
I mean,
when there is an event or something has happened that was reprehensible or whatever, that was someone kind of went a little extra there, and you jump out there, it's spontaneous, it's in the moment, it's the right time, and here you go, and like I was talking about earlier, if I'm playing a regular shift or whatever, and you're not. And the other guy's not playing, maybe that means I haven't done enough for that coach to feel like he needs to put his guy out there.
Yeah.
So you got to start
like
pushing some buttons.
Little strategy.
Yeah. Because it just depends on how the game is going, whether you're home or away. You know what I mean? Because if you're a guy that's kind of what you call a liability, you're not likely to see a lot of ice time.
Right.
Or whatever.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of, like you're saying, there's certain circumstances that are going on, and you kind of have to, in all sports, like once you kind of understand the deep strategy of what's going on, momentum, and with the crowds and penalty minutes and score, like all the things are at play that you kind of have to be aware of, because people are like, why doesn't he just get out there and fight? And it's like, well, there's a lot of things in strategy that goes into it that people just are not aware of. They just want the entertainment. And I can't help, but the way I see this is, when you're out there and you're squaring off against somebody in front of an audience, like, how aware are you of that situation, and what are you thinking in that moment when you were about to fight somebody on skates? Because that's another thing. Like, how do you learn how to fight on skates?
That's why
it's
can't really practice.
A lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
A lot of extra time on the rink before or after practice with somebody kind of help you tussle it. But I think for me,
okay, so there was practice.
I think fear played a lot into me being able to do it, where when you're afraid and you're concerned and you're worried and you're being honest about this person might beat you up or hurt you,
right,
things would get quiet and I would breathe. When I played the game, I wouldn't breathe. I'd be very frenetic. Everything was a frenzy, and it probably made me less of an effective hockey player with the puck and offensively speaking. But when I fought, I breathed. You know what I mean? I was concerned about what was about to happen, anxious, nervous, the whole thing. And what happens is just things get slower.
Sure.
You're focused a lot harder.
Yeah.
And then once you're in the thick of it, you just go.
Right. It's very reactive.
And you go out of sheer will. Kill or be killed. I hate saying that because it's cliche or whatever, but I mean, that's really what it is.
Yeah.
No one wants to see somebody just kind of fending somebody off for a minute. You know what I mean? They want to see two willing combatants, and I'd hate to be that guy because, I grew up here in Anchorage, and I'd go to the rink on Friday and Saturday nights to watch the Aces, and I hated when guys did that. So I never wanted to be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be somebody that, people thought was bringing it, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I'd heard the jeers. I'd heard them from my friends about, you're not very good at being a tough guy, or like, I don't know if that's for you. You lost.
And then when you're fighting someone, you like, that person comes up. And
I don't know if I've ever seen you win a fight. And
I'll show them.
And then there was the whole thing about being on the team, not being confused. Like, this is why I'm on the team. This is what they expect out of me. I need to check this box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, that skate back from the penalty box back to your bench is one of the best feelings that I've ever experienced as a human being, is to see your teammates cheering you on and giving you
the stick.
Yeah.
So explain that
information.
So typically after a fight, you'll see certain team members banging their sticks on the wall. It's kind of like a clap, essentially for a good, a job well done. Whether it was, not always when you win though, is it? I mean, it's just essentially for a good fight.
It's a good for you, fucking right, JJ. You showed up, like thank you. Like we're acknowledging. It's a respect thing too,
right?
You know, because let's be honest, like.
A lot of guys aren't going to do
that. And I don't mind telling people that I was afraid. You know what I mean?
Well,
like because I think it's just I need to be honest about it.
I think you'd be kind of a psycho if you weren't.
Yeah, I was. I loved showing up for my teammates. I loved showing up for myself. I loved earning my spot on the team. I loved feeling like I was worthy of where I was at. You know what I mean? But getting to that emotion and that realization was pretty tough. That was a rough 30 to a minute and a half you had to go through to get that.
$300 a week.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not much. It's like, you're like, I'm willing to get brain damage, lose my teeth. I mean, I don't know how well the insurance was, but probably not much. And so it's like you're playing and you're fighting, but you have such a love for like the team, it seems. And like, you're like, that's what fuels me to do a good job for my boys.
Thank God for Ruby Tuesdays. I would not have survived. I would just destroy that salad bar. You know what I mean? I'd take 2 tins out of there, and luckily for me, the hostess never said a word. But
yeah, you just stocked up on all the food.
Just like, if she did say anything, be like, "This is me on YouTube, all right?
Yeah.
You don't want this."
Yeah. The 2 things that come up, I always think of. Because essentially, like, it's 2 teams sending out their tough guys to fight each other, and I always think of the situation in the movie Troy, where it's Brad Pitt,
and Orlando Bloom.
No, and Bo Agrius at the beginning, because that's how they used to settle lots of battles for millennia. Is we're going to send out our best fighter, you send out your best fighter, and we can save everybody else from the slaughter if we just fight you too.
Yep.
And the young boy goes to get Brad Pitt, who's Achilles, and he's like, he was the biggest man I'd ever seen. I wouldn't want to fight him. And he says the famous line, like, that's why no one's ever going to remember you. And it's like, that's kind of like the mindset I think you probably have to have is fear is normal in a situation like that, but it's like rising to the job that most of those guys on the bench don't want. Yeah. They're, either there to score goals, they're there to play defense or whatever. They're not there to fight like you are. So it's like, kind of a cool job at the end of the day.
It was really cool, but there was always that feeling when I knew that I'd have somebody on the team that was going to be formidable.
Right.
You're tying your skates and you're looking around and you're just like, man, I would love to know what it feels like
to not have to worry.
To not have to worry about to know that no one expects me to get in a fight. They just want to see me skate around with the puck and look pretty and make fun plays and maybe score or whatever. But then here I am, I'm just like, people expect me to do that hand combat, you know what I mean, on skates, and I would never be like, oh, wish I was bigger, you know what I mean? Sure. It's just the way it was. I was an undersized guy, and so I think that's where a lot of the fear came from.
How tall are you?
5'11".
See, but that's not in me, like in like undersized. Like I wasn't like being like looking down, right? So like you're still a pretty tall guy.
We're talking, and
you were fighting. You said like 6'4", 6'5",
6'9". Yeah, the video that you were talking about earlier, that guy was 6'9", 270.
Yeah,
damn,
like a Zdeno Chara or somebody
that's insane.
7 foot on skates, like it's pretty crazy.
That's insane. I can't even reach up there, man.
Yeah,
well, you'd find a way.
Yeah,
in the moment you'd find a way.
So, tell me about playing in an NHL game. Like, what was that?
How did you get? I mean, let's not skip ahead, Kyle.
Well,
how did you? So, I mean, like, you're in this league, getting paid $300 a week, and fighting your ass off, and then what happens next? How do you find yourself in different?
What happens next is you come back the next year. They change coaches. There's a whole lot of stuff going on, and so you find yourself, on an airplane to somewhere else. And for me, that was Cincinnati. And luckily for me, it was a team that really wanted me. And at that point, I knew there was nothing. There's nothing I wasn't sure of. I knew they expect me to come and to protect their younger players, and to go out there and be a good teammate, be a cheerleader, You know what I mean?
How old were you at this point?
I was 27, I think.
Okay.
26, 27.
And these like other players that are playing, like the younger players were like how old?
18, 19.
God damn, really?
Mm-hmm.
And all those kids come out. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
you're a babysitter. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you don't want to lose sight of what your dream is. You had to be realistic or whatever. Like, no one's looking at me like I'm going to be the guy that's going to go all the way.
Right.
But at the same time, if I'm here and this is why they want me here, well, I need to do it as best as I can do it. And so what happened was I just kind of went all in. I was in a division in the East Coast Hockey League where it was nothing but just, it was a jungle. You know what I mean? So coming from the Aces division and the Utah division, like it was harder to find guys that were willing to fight. Whereas when I went to Cincinnati, every team had, one guy that was very established and then 2 or 3 other guys that wanted to be established just like him too. So I always had a dance partner. And so that was where I really learned. I mean, I couldn't really even get my hands in my pockets that year just from my hands being bruised. But you know what? I was doing it. I was playing every night. The coaches would give me bonuses and raises, for my efforts. And so it was a good year.
So you were making a little bit more than $300
I was making a little, at that point, I was making a little more. And then, you know what?
Good.
And since I played college, I could play the game. So I got to play on a good line, and so I got to play on the power play, scored some goals or whatever. And so what that made me more of a target.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm standing in front of your net and your defenseman's scared to get rough with me or whatever, it's going to be a lot easier for me to stand your goalie's way. Make it harder for your goalie to see. And then, your defensemen are scared because I'm trying to run them to the wall 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And so now I had guys tapping me on the shoulder, you know what I mean? Like coming after me. And so that was different, where now I had to be the guy to be like, nah, maybe next period, you know what I mean? Because your coach forbade you from fighting.
Sure.
We go back into that gamesmanship. Of course they want you to fight because you're being effective. Can we just go with you being a hockey player first for a while? Which is, you sure? You sure you don't want me to, fight?
You don't want me to fight?
Yeah. So it was a great year. I played for a really good coach, Chuck Weber, who treated me like a hockey player, but utilized some other things that I like to do or was willing to do. I should say willing to do. And it was a good season. And so after that, just because I had been such a good player for him in terms of being a good citizen and being coachable, he let me pick where I wanted to go the next year. And so I was like, I want to go play for the Aces now. It was my triumphant return. I was finally on the Aces, and I was finally established where I wasn't going to be the guy that was going to get cut.
Right.
When I had agreed to come back, it was like, you will not be cut because somebody from the American League comes down and take your spot. So you'll be on the team. So I had that and got to finally be the last Ace. And for me, that was the pinnacle of what I was really looking for.
Huh.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what was that coming home, the first game back like?
It was awesome. And then I broke my hand. So it kind of, that was a stinker of an event.
Broke one of the guns.
Yep. So, but it ended up being a good thing because I met a guy named Matt Mann who was, in a distinguished military career, and he actually taught me how to throw a real punch. And so I credit him big time because after that, I never ever hurt my hand ever again.
You were all DIY before that?
I was just,
you weren't. That's what I was going to ask.
I was just swinging.
Yeah.
So you never learned, never took a class?
No.
Oh man.
It was all effort,
bro.
Cheesy to say all guts, but yeah, that's what it was. And it was just, all right, get in a fight, try to win.
Right.
And then through that, I would go through some tactical things with some jiu-jitsu guys.
Yeah.
Or whatever, but never really serious. Because like I said, I was only making what I was making, and I was at home finally.
Right.
And that was time to audition for people to hire me. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I want to. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking I'm going to go out here and be this big popular Alaska Ace, and everyone's going to want to give me a nice job. You know what I mean? That was what was on my head, what I was thinking. And I had a girlfriend that I thought I was going to be with. She had a child, and I was all in on the Alaska Aces. I had no other worldly ambitions from hockey other than just
This was my dream. I achieved it.
And I achieved it, and had a good year. Played for a great coach, Brent Thompson, and was committed to the youth hockey community. I was coaching a team with my friend Merritt Waldrop, and I was all in on that, and was flying to Detroit to play in some highfalutin U16 tournament and I had a call from Ron Hextall, who was the assistant general manager of the Los Angeles Kings, and I thought it was just like a we hear you're, a former hockey player and he's black and is now coaching kids or whatever. So I thought it was about, one of those kind of programs maybe the Kings want to do because it's at Los Angeles. He didn't really give me any ideas about why he was calling me in the voicemail. So get off the plane. I call the number back while I'm walking to the baggage claim, and he's talks, real tough. He's from, I forget where he's from, but where it is, it must be a hard place. But he said, we've got this guy named Kevin Westgarth, and we're thinking he's going to be up with the big club this year, and we're looking for someone to kind of fill that need in the minor league level. And I'm hearing that you would be a great replacement for him. And I'm just like, really? Because that's how I had learned to watch how to fight by watching these videos and watching these guys that played in the American League.
Mm-hmm.
And so to hear him say that we'd like to see if you can play in this league and fight these guys now, that wasn't something that was ever in my periphery. So I was 100% reluctant and not eager to go. Like I said, I had a girlfriend. I was playing for the Aces, and I was enjoying all that was coming from being the hometown local guy.
Yeah.
Because I'd been involved in hockey camps, and I had lots of really great relationships with kids and, their parents, and that I was getting a lot from, organically, that I enjoyed and made me feel good about myself, and I was happy. I was satisfied. And I said, hey, can I call my coach and tell him about this and we can figure this out? Yeah, sure. Because in my head I was thinking, well, I'm not going for some token tryout, you know what I mean? And then I come back and then there's that thing, like I told you, when I got to play that emergency call-up thing with the Aces, and I got, that
traitor stuff.
You suck. You're not. You think you're a professional hockey player? You think you can do that? You know what I mean? You think you're that guy? You think you're worthy or you're good enough or tough enough or whatever? I didn't want to go through that by going to a tryout and then being unceremoniously dismissed and sent home to be like, what were you thinking anyways? Back where you belong. You know what I mean? I had those thoughts in my head. And, fancy myself not a pretty boy, but, I didn't want my nose to be all crooked and, I didn't want all those, these guys, they're missing teeth and their face looks like a road map, literally. And, so I call Brent and I go, hey, I just got a call from so-and-so, Ron Hexley. He's like, what? Who? And he's like, yeah. And so like, can you talk to him, please? Because I'd rather not just like, if it's not like a real thing, I'd rather just assume like just, which he enjoyed hearing because he knew I was committed to being here. And I wasn't trying to be one of those enterprising players that just wanted to call up, because that's really what guys want. Usually you'd hope that, and that's really what you want. You want guys that want to play at the next level because then they're committed and they're better athletes and more productive. Whereas I was, the opposite. I kind of like, I want to be right here.
Yeah.
Being that guy for the Alaskan Aces, having Bob Lester, make me look, feel, and sound like a legend or whatever,
Right.
And he called me back and said, no, you got to go. I was like, shit. Then I had to rehearse the whole thing about telling my girlfriend or what at the time that, hey, I'm going to go try to be a hockey player, I guess. And, the rest was history. I showed up and it was like fantasy camp. You know what I mean? All these guys are, draft picks, and some guys have played in the NHL even, and you're amongst them. And you're getting treated like you're on the team.
Right.
And which I was still, I had the healthy paranoia from my background of, nothing's ever been given to me, you know what I mean? Where they kind of, right when I got there, they made me feel very comfortable, like, hey, you're on the team. As long as you're not, a fraud, and it worked out. And so from there, I'm sorry, I'm going on a long tangent, but, played in that organization for a few years, and then Brent was with the New York Islanders. So he brought me over to play on that minor league team, the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. The guy they had there, who I think is pound for pound maybe the toughest guy I've ever seen, Brett Glenn, had some shoulder issues, and they went through a season, or they survived a season where he had torn his shoulder, his labrum, so he missed the whole year, and so they just got trashed, really, kind of, they got run out of every building, and that was not their team motto. Their team motto was be one of the toughest teams in the league always, but because they only had one guy, and everybody already had their guy, they kind of had to play the balance of that previous season without like a legitimate, thing, and coming into this year, they had some high-end players that they had high hopes for. And so they just were not going to go at it with only one guy. So they brought me in to, be an addition to Brett. And so whether one of us got hurt or suspended, hopefully somebody will be, able to be in the lineup. And, they sat me down when I got there and they said, hey, we're not trying to win the championship. We just want to see our players develop, and we want them to go out there confident that they're not going to deal with any bullshit. Bullshit being people taking liberties on them, picking on them, sticking them, chirping them, and all's good here. Okay, pretty clear mandate.
Yeah,
and
it's an easy job description.
Yeah, and at that point, I had gone through the breakup, single now or whatever, angry about it or hurt or whatever. Contemplating like, man, what am I doing here? Like, I'm babysitting a bunch of 20-year-olds, and all my friends are getting established. They're buying homes and having their second or third kid and getting promotions and building, and some even building homes or whatever. What am I doing? I'm making a decent wage, but nothing that I can live on all summer without subsidizing or supplementing with hockey camp fees from working at these hockey camps or schools. And I just kind of tapped into that whole hurt, angry thing that I had going, and it turned out to be a really productive year for me in terms of playing that role. And they chose to reward me, give me a call up and give me a chance to kind of see what I could do at that next level. And I thank God for that, because I think I have the perspective of it's all worth it. No matter what you go through, because I think, unfortunately, we all know people who kind of have taken the teeth a little bit and kind of chose to give up and choose to do something else. Whereas for me, I kind of have that, it's worth it. You just got to deal with a little bit of bullshit, but a good attitude and a healthy effort, anything can happen.
Yeah. So how old were you when you got the call up?
32.
32.
Which is insane, but yeah, it was.
Because that's old. For
in
lack
hockey.
of better, that's older for.
That's old, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm ancient.
Yeah, because I mean, when you talk about this, these kids are getting, they're 20, 19 years old coming up. Oh, yeah. These absolute studs, and then you're kind of 32, and you're.
Okay, you're an absolute stud.
A different type of stud.
I thought I was trying or pretending to be.
Yeah. What I'm saying is the scorers that you're the all-stars that you were defending and standing up for. And so it's like, what was that like? You get the call, your first game, you suit up. Was it a different experience getting on that? Like,
it was like, what am I doing here?
Really?
How did I get here? I feel like the ice is crumbling beneath me. Like, what's wrong with the ice? You know what I mean? Why is it
They got different ice here.
Yeah. And people are all along the glass, and they've got their signs up, and they got the people that they're fans of and booing you, because we were in New Jersey. It was a road game. And your whole, you're confused.
Yeah.
Really. I guess, in short, I could say I was confused. Like, how did I get here? Like, wow, this really happened.
Yeah.
I can't believe everything I ever wanted since I was a little kid to get on, NHL ice sheet for real.
Yeah.
It wasn't a dream.
It was
like, this is not a dream. This is actually really happening. I'm out, that song, Let Me Take a Selfie, I don't know if you remember that, just that ridiculous song or whatever.
For sure.
It's playing in warm-ups, and I'm like, what am I doing here?
I got to fight somebody. Like, I'm going to fight somebody.
Yeah, pay attention. You're up next in the line for the warm-ups, and, you're there, and you're expected to perform.
Yeah.
So there was that whole, I think that was the nervousness. Is like, okay, well, when you're there, they expect you not to disgrace the game.
Sure.
Anyway, but, because there's a lot of things you do in the minor leagues, like, skating the other team's warm-ups, sticking people in warm-ups, trying to fight people in warm-ups, all kinds of shenanigans that just are not acceptable.
Interesting.
And I was told very clearly, like,
don't do this.
Don't do anything weird that you've been doing for years.
Take whatever you've done the last 10 years and don't do any of it.
Be somewhat normal, and just try to play the game and see what happens. And they had Jaromir Jagr and Patrick Elias and Martin Brodeur, and they had that famous general manager, Lou Lamoriello.
Yeah.
So for me to go out there and to be weird would not have gone over very well. And I was told very clearly, to just, mind your P's and Q's and just play the game. Which for me, I hadn't heard that in a long time.
Sure.
You just play the game, like try to score. Yeah, try to score. Like,
So
Coach, I think I'm going to hit somebody.
You weren't-
No.
you weren't really like an enforcer.
I mean, I was there because to play that role, but
Right.
in that particular game, against that particular team, that part of the season, no one was looking for that. You know what I mean? They had guys called up. We had guys called up. And I was one of the guys that was called up. It was, play the game. And, in the minors, teams have mandates and they have certain players that they want to see progress a certain way during the season. And so guys like me end up kind of, depending on your, your ability or, what the lineup looks like that night, maybe not playing as much.
Yeah.
And here I was all of a sudden playing in the NHL and the coach is saying, we're rolling. And that was his coach.